Welcome to the 320 Way in Conversation podcast, where we are on a mission to change the story of how we age. I'm Karen Case, and my guest today is Karen Dougan, captain of the Lagan Dragons, a dragon boat club based in Belfast that supports people affected directly and indirectly by breast cancer. Karen, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. I'm really excited to be your first guest. So hopefully I'll be able to talk about things that are going to be interesting to people.
I'm sure we will. So just as a background, we first met in a dragon boat in Belfast when you joined the Lagan Dragons. I was one of the founding members of the Lagan Dragons following my own breast cancer diagnosis in 2012. And then I was captain for 2 years up until 2023. And then you took over as captain and you've been doing an amazing job since then.
Well, that's very kind of you, Karen. I'll give you that 20 quid later.
So just tell us, what drew you to dragon boating and what made it stick?
Do you know, I've been trying to think why I was attracted to dragon boating, and I found out about dragon boating after I'd finished my first lot of cancer treatment in 2017. I had a holistic review with a nurse at the end of my treatment. And she said to me, have you ever heard of Lagan Dragons? And I went, no. She said, well, they're a dragon boat club for people affected by breast cancer. And I went, oh, well, that sounds really interesting. But I thought, God, no, I have never heard of dragon boating, never seen dragon boating in action. And I just sort of put it to the back of my mind. And then there was a TV programme on BBC One that my husband had recorded for me, and I watched it, and it was about the Lagan Dragons.
Was I on it? Was I there?
You were, indeed. Yes, looking as fantastic as ever. And I thought, God, I wish I could look like that woman. Let me sign up. And I looked at it and I thought, my God, these people are going through breast cancer treatment or are survivors or, you know, people who understand my journey. And so I put a message across to the group and I came along and I absolutely hated it. I really, the very first session I had 3 free sessions for newbies just to see if it was something people would take to. And I had 3 free sessions. And the very first one, I sat in the boat and I thought I was going to get trained and I thought I was going to get shown how to do everything. But no, I sat in the boat and the person, I don't know who the coach, I think I know who the coach was, or one of the girls in the boat said to me, just copy the person in front. And it was like, what? And I couldn't talk, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't do anything for about...
You're not really selling this right now.
Hang on, no, it gets better. It gets better. And it was so tiring. And I thought, I can't do this. I cannot do this at all. But you know what made it stick is the people. Yeah. Because they were just the best people to get me involved. They'd been there, done it, got the T-shirt and understood what I was going through. Didn't have to tell people too much about my diagnosis at that point.
You just knew, really.
Yeah. And it was just such a lovely, friendly, joyful occasion. And even though I couldn't do it, and I kept saying to people, how can you talk and paddle at the same time? And they said, Karen, one day you will. And yep.
And now you're the captain.
And now I can't shut up when I'm on the boat.
So just like, if for anybody who doesn't know what dragon boating is, it really embraces what the 320 Way is about, which is movement is always better than not moving. And so the advice used to be, don't move. You know, when I first got diagnosed with breast cancer, I remember I was told not to use my arm, and I kind of ignored it because I just thought, no, moving is always better than not moving, within the limitations of your condition, but you still need to move. But it was basically, you know, the history of how dragon boating and breast cancer kind of connected. Can you just share that a little bit?
Yeah, there was it was back, I think it was back in 1996, Dr. Don McKenzie from Canada. He tried to establish or do some research into exercise for women who'd had surgery and were at risk of lymphedema. Lymphedema, where lymph nodes have been removed because of cancer in the lymph nodes. And what they found was that actually it didn't exacerbate the risk of lymphedema, but it actually helped manage the risk of lymphedema much more than they thought. So it was a really sort of exciting time where dragon boating was seen as a really good form of exercise for women. Mm-hmm. And we know that men get breast cancer as well. So I'm not excluding men from this conversation. But where dragon boating was sort of understood to be was that it could help people post breast cancer surgery. And I think that's what makes it such an attractive sport. You do exercise, you do get fitter, you do get stronger. I have lymphedema and I keep it under control. And I would say that the paddling does help me keep it under control. It's not got any worse. And I'm thankful to exercise, particularly dragon boating, that helps me keep fit, keep my lymphedema under control, build my stand. It's done so much for me that I just cannot, explain the benefits enough of what dragon boating does for people with breast cancer or who've had breast cancer.
The other side of it is, studies that have studies into longevity. There's like key factors. One of them is physical activity. The other one is community and social interaction, and also things like purpose. And in dragon boating, you've got that community. So you're physically active, but you're in a boat together. You're literally in a boat together.
Yeah.
And you've got a purpose to not pass out or win a race or so it just really feeds into those positive aspects of being healthy, being well, and longevity, which is what we all want.
Absolutely. I've been listening to various podcasts of late about health and exercise, and I wasn't really a fit person at all. I hated exercise. I always hated sports day at school. I hated anything that made me puffed out. But the dragon boating brings something to your life which is more than just an activity. You've got the people around you who support you. You have to rely on a team working together and supporting each other. And we've each got a buddy when we're in the boat. And if the boat capsizes, which is very, very rare, unless it's a controlled environment where you have to look out for your buddy. You can't just be on your own. So you know that you've got the support, you've got great bonds with people, you exercise, your health, both physical and mental, is really benefiting from the community, the exercise, being out in nature, watching. Even when you're training, you shouldn't be watching anything other than the paddler in front. But sometimes, you see the seal coming up the river and the kingfishers and the beautiful herons and the swans. And it's just the beauty of the whole experience. It's not just about the activity. It's about the beauty and the support and the empathy and the love from the whole experience.
Well, you really sold dragon boating. So if anybody wants to look up, I'm sure they could Google where the nearest dragon boat club is. So you basically answered my next 3 questions. So we're going to just move on. So I want to come on to your stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Now, you've spoken very openly about this, but I just wanted to ask you about living with stage 4 cancer and talking about it. You're a very open person, but has it helped being open? Not everybody's the same. They process in a different way.
Yeah. I was diagnosed, I've had breast cancer twice before, 2017, 2020, local occurrences. But then it came back fully fledged in my lungs, my liver, lymph node up here. They thought it was in my bones as well, but they discounted that. And it was all identified back in October 24, I think that's when it was. And I sort of always worried about it coming back and spreading, and the fact that it had been in my lymph nodes. Somebody said to me, oh, well, that's not good. And you just hear these horror stories. And it did come back and it did spread, and it was pretty awful. It was a pretty awful time. As you say, I've always tried to be open. And I did tell my friends, I told the Dragon Boat Club, I used it as an opportunity to try and reassure the Dragon Boat paddlers that it wasn't the end of the game. It was something that I would deal with and be managed through by the oncology team. I reached out to people. I started doing a vlog, and I don't know why I did all of that. I suppose, what's the point of trying to hide it? You know, because I can't pretend that I'm not full of cancer. You know, I can't pretend, I can't live a lie. So I might as well tell people and see what help that they can give, or what help I can give others in a similar situation. And it wasn't for selfish reasons that I told people. I just thought, what's the point of hiding it? I just, but that's a personal thing.
It is definitely. I mean, not everybody would be the same. But can I just say, when I heard about your diagnosis, I remember it. I remember I was stood in my kitchen and I didn't know what to do. I was wondering, I was like going around the kitchen going, and I know you think I'm like hard as nails, but I did cry. I was like, no, this can't be happening. And that was because my understanding at the time of stage 4 cancer, I mean, you hear stage 4, you think, well, that's it, game over.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the case. And, you know, there's much more advances in medicine and treatment. So could you actually share a little bit about that? Because my reaction perhaps might be quite typical, that when you hear stage 4.
Oh, yeah. That was my reaction as well. When he told me, one of the first questions I asked, well, okay, how long have I got? Which is not a helpful question to ask. And, you know,
the obvious question to ask, isn't it?
It is. Now, he did tell me one thing, which when I asked him about 6 months later, he said he'd said something else. So I don't know. I don't really know what he did say to me at the time, to be honest. But do you know what? I'm going to ignore whatever the prognosis is, because I'm not terminal. And I've learned a lot about stage 4 cancer over the last 14 months. You're told that it's not curable. You sit in front of your oncologist and he says to you, right, it's not curable, Karen. We will do our best to make your life comfortable. And that was really shocking to me when he said about making my life comfortable, because to me that felt like I was on a downward spiral. Now, this was at the very, very beginning, after I'd just been diagnosed, and I was going to go on a clinical trial, which didn't materialize for a number of reasons. But they talk about palliative care. Now, I've been speaking to so many people in the health industry, so many friends, and palliative care is not what people probably think it is. To me, palliative care was always, well, you're dying, we're going to try and make life as comfortable for you. But that's not what it's about.
Yeah, because I would picture somebody lying in a bed. When you said palliative care, that's what...
No, I mean, I'm on palliative care, but I'm not end of life, because the treatment I'm getting at the moment is working. It's keeping some of the tumours stable, and it's reducing some of the other ones.
Wow.
So they would still call that palliative care because it's treating the holistic person, so I've been through counselling, I've had reflexology, I've had dietary advice, dietitian. I have my injections once a month. I have my tablets twice a day. And anything, if I've got any pain or if I'm sick, or some of the side effects were initially identified as possibly being diarrhea, sorry to be graphic, I never had any of that. Don't have any side effects. My nails are rotten now. They're really very weak and bad now. But they try and keep you not healthy. That's not really the right word. They try and manage the disease as long as they can, and as long as the treatment works.
Yeah.
And I've been told by my oncologist, when this treatment fails, which could be, down the line, a couple of years down the line, whatever, he says there'll be other options. There'll be other options that are...
It's hopeful, isn't it? It's
hopeful.
It is. Yeah.
And I dialed into a seminar, an online seminar that took place in Dublin, and they had a couple of professors who were presenting, and the professors were saying that the advances in research and the advances in cancer treatment are phenomenal now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Going at breakneck speed. And even one of the professors actually said, there will be a time when we can say that what has been incurable in stage 4 can be cured in some cases. So, I want to be a super survivor. That's what I want to do.
Absolutely. I think you will be.
I know so.
I think cancer might be a bit scared, actually. So just, you're so positive and you're so full of life. And tell us about the event you were at that was organised by Chris Hoy. What was it called again? It's gone out of my head.
Tour de Force.
Tour de Force. So Chris Hoy, as I'm sure many people will know, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. A fit, healthy guy, obviously super duper fit. But share a little bit about that event and just what it was like.
Yeah. Well, what actually encouraged me to do that event in the first place was that I listened to his audiobook of his life and diagnosis, and his wife being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I listened to it, and he mentioned this Tour de Force, how he wanted to have an event that would bring together people, and I can't remember if it was just people with stage 4 cancer of all descriptions, all cancers, and how he wanted to raise money for cancer charities. And I just thought, wow. Now, I'm not a cyclist by any stretch of the imagination. And I just thought his book was just the most uplifting book I've ever read in my entire life. And it was narrated by him. And it was just a revelation. And so I kept an eye out on social media for this Tour de Force, 4 being stage 4, right? And it was advertised, and there were different cycles involved. There was a yellow cycle for people who, didn't want to do masses of kilometers. There was a family ride. There were sort of 2 very long, demanding rides. And I signed up for the yellow static ride. I was raising money, and, the money at the beginning, I thought, well, maybe if I get 100 quid, it'll be all right. And Chris Hoy had set a target of £1 million, right? So when the event was getting nearer, I started going to the gym, and I was going on the bicycle, just a little bit of a bicycle ride, just in the gym for about 10 minutes. And on the day, me and my husband went over, we flew over, we stayed overnight in the hotel, and then we went to the velodrome on the Sunday morning, and which is where it was taking place in Glasgow. And the buzz was amazing. There were so many people there. And there were people there with stage 4 cancer, some of whom had been on drips that very week and were determined to get off the drip and come and cycle. And I saw Rebecca Adlington, a wonderful Olympic gold medalist in swimming, and she did a selfie with me, and I was like a dumbstruck fan. It was just unbelievable. And so I was doing the static cycle because I couldn't have done 40 kilometers or whatever it was out on the roads. I just wanted to do the static cycle for 20 minutes. And so when it was my turn to go on the bike, I went on the bike, and the guy next to me, lovely guy called Duncan, turns out he is our second most decorated Olympian of all time. Wow. And I ain't got a clue who he was. So when I asked him what he was, he said, I've won a few Olympic medals. I went, what? And he'd won gold medals, and he was, and that I actually started to interview him when I was on the bike, and he was just the loveliest man. He was so lovely. And I tried to get him involved in dragon boating. He says, well, yeah, sign me up. So it was just a beautiful experience. And then after I did the bike, I went out into the main sort of outdoor area where there were stalls and stands and charitable stands. And Chris Hoy came onto the stage and was, talking to the crowd. And he mentioned that there were probably some people in the crowd who'd only just recently been diagnosed with stage 4. And I was at the front of the crowd, and I went, yeah, really loudly. And he saw me, and he went, yes. And then about 10, 15 minutes later, after he finished speaking, I was at the Macmillan tent, and I had my back to the stage. And one of the girls, the Macmillan girl, said to me, there he is. And I turned around, and there was Chris Hoy standing at a barrier signing autographs. And I thought, I've got to get over there. I've got to speak to him. So I went over and he looked at me, and I swear to God, I nearly fell down at this point. He put his arms out and said, how are you? Can I give you a hug? And I was like, what? So I grabbed hold of him, and he was really holding on tight to me. And I was almost crying in his ear, saying, you are the reason why I'm here. You are the reason why I'm here. I said, you give me so much hope. I said, I never want to let you go. And I said, no, I have to. And he said, how are you getting on with your treatment? And he was really interested.
Really interested, yeah.
So I asked him as well, and he was the loveliest man. And I think it's so awful that he has stage 4 cancer. If he can get it, and he's a fit guy, strong guy, and he's won countless medals, you think, God, if he's got it, how can that be possible? But then you look at him and you think he's such a role model. He's so positive. And as it turned out, the whole event raised nearly £4 million compared to the 1 million that he thought it was going to raise.
And who would have thought an event with people living with stage 4 cancer would be so positive?
Exactly. Yeah, we weren't there going, oh God, we're going to die one day,
Well, we're all going to die one day.
We might just get there a bit quicker than other people. But it was just incredible. It was absolutely amazing. It really was. It was so uplifting. I want to do it again this year if I can.
I'm sure you'll do another one. So listen, we're almost out of time. So just one last question. I mean, if you would like to advise somebody who's facing a life-changing diagnosis, and it could be anything, what would your advice be, or what, for them to just be able to move forwards with that?
I think that's a
question.
It is a really, really hard question, because I might have given you a different answer if my doctor had said to me, Karen, this treatment's not working, you've got 6 months. Mm-hmm. Whereas my treatment is working, and I'm very, very fortunate that my treatment is working. And I know there'll be people out there, I know some people who are not in the same position as me and are going through a really, really tough time. It's a cliche, but I think you've just got to make the most of every day. And it really is a cliche, but I think until you're in that situation, you probably just think, oh, that's just an old saying. But actually, I think it is. You've got to make the most of every day. Find joy in the smallest things. Create a bucket list. Do the things on a bucket list that you feel able to do. But don't be too hard on yourself. There'll be days when you just don't want to get out of bed. So just stay in bed. Just listen to your body. Mm-hmm. If you can move, if you can get up, and you can do something that you enjoy, even if it's just going out in the garden and smelling the flowers, or in my case, swimming or going dragon boating. It's whatever floats your boat, if that's not a really stupid pun to make. But just embrace the good things in life. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of things that you used to worry about or stress about that you don't actually care about anymore.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Retirement that released me from work that I found really, really stressful. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that I don't work anymore. That sounds terrible, but it was a weight off my shoulders.
Yeah, well, you probably were working longer than you should have done.
You're trying to deal with a life-changing illness, and you're trying to do a job where it's not always easy, and you think, I need to get my priorities right here.
Absolutely. And I know you've been doing lots of things. I saw your Facebook trip to Japan, and you really are just taking every opportunity, and good for you.
Thank you.
So you are an absolute inspiration, Karen. We could talk for another hour easily. Well, I think both of us, but we're out of time. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure your story will inspire people who are listening to this podcast and motivate them to just do whatever they can do.
Definitely. Even just a little bit of a walk if you can. Keep moving.
It's the thing about being moving, no matter how small, it does something in here.
Yeah.
It impacts you socially, it impacts you physically, and so that's our message.
Yep, absolutely. And thanks, Karen. It was a joy. It flew as ever. So I'm hoping it was a helpful conversation.
Brilliant.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
And look after yourself, stay as well as you can, and keep moving.
Yeah, I will do. Take care.
Bye.
You've been listening to the 320 Way in Conversation with Karen Case. Like, listen and subscribe for upcoming episodes and join the growing 320 Way community at 320.com.